Ryan Carter stood frozen in a glass-walled conference room as his boss gripped his arm, her perfectly manicured nails digging into his sleeve. Across the polished table sat 7 stone-faced investors holding the future of a billion-dollar deal. Elena Vaughn, the youngest CEO in tech, turned to him with eyes that promised consequences and spoke words that shattered his quiet existence. "Gentlemen, I'd like you to meet my fiancé." The room erupted. Ryan's mind went blank. He wasn't her fiancé, he was her IT manager, a single father who fixed servers, not corporate disasters. But her hand squeezed tighter, and he understood with brutal clarity, lie now or lose everything. If you're watching, hit that like button and drop a comment with your city so I can see how far this story travels. Now let's dive in. 3 days earlier, Ryan Carter's morning began the way every morning began, with the sound of small feet padding across hardwood floors. "Daddy, I can't find Mr. Whiskers." Ryan opened one eye. Mia stood beside his bed, 5 years old and already fully dressed in mismatched socks and a tutu over jeans. Her brown hair stuck up in approximately 16 directions. "Did you check under your pillow?" he asked, his voice still rough with sleep. "Yes." "The toy basket?" "Yes." "The bathroom sink?" Mia's face scrunched up. "Why would he be in the bathroom sink?" "Last Tuesday you gave him a bubble bath. In the sink. With my shaving cream." "Oh." She disappeared, then returned 30 seconds later clutching a bedraggled stuffed cat. "Found him! Ryan sat up, running a hand through his own hair. The alarm clock read 6:47 a.m. He had 13 minutes before they needed to leave for Mia's preschool, which meant he had approximately 0 minutes to shower, make breakfast, and locate wherever Mia had hidden his car keys this time. Being a single father meant living in a state of permanent tactical disadvantage. "Cereal or toast?" he called out, already heading to the kitchen. "Pancakes." "Cereal or toast?" "No. Pancakes with chocolate chips." Mia. "Fine, cereal, but the kind with the marshmallows." They didn't have the kind with marshmallows. They had bran flakes because Ryan had made the mistake of reading an article about childhood nutrition and now felt guilty about sugar content. He poured her a bowl anyway, added milk, and slid it across their small kitchen table. Their apartment wasn't much. 1 bedroom for Mia, a couch that folded out for him, a kitchen barely big enough for 2 people to stand in. But the rent was manageable, the neighborhood was safe, and the landlord didn't ask questions about the occasionally chaotic noise levels that came with raising a kindergartner alone. "Can Elena come over today?" Mia asked through a mouthful of cereal. Ryan paused mid-coffee pour. "What?" "Elena, your boss. Can she come play?" "But what in ichi. "Elena doesn't. She's not really the playing type, kiddo." She smiled at me last time. That had been exactly once, 3 months ago, when Ryan had been forced to bring Mia to the office during a childcare emergency. Elena Vaughn had walked past his cubicle, noticed the small human coloring aggressively on printer paper, and given what might charitably be called a smile. It had lasted approximately 1.2 seconds. "Elena's very busy," Ryan said carefully. "You're busy and you still play with me." Arguing with 5-year-old logic was like trying to win a debate against a very small, very stubborn philosopher. Ryan gave up and checked his watch. They had 4 minutes. "Shoes. Now. Go." The drive to Little Scholar's preschool took 18 minutes in traffic. Mia sang the entire way, some song about dinosaurs that she'd learned from a YouTube video and had been repeating non-stop for 6 days. Ryan had the lyrics memorized against his will. "Love you, Daddy," she said when he unbuckled her. "Love you too, Bug. Be good." "I'm always good." That was statistically untrue, but Ryan kissed the top of her head anyway and watched as she ran toward the building, Mr. Whiskers tucked under one arm. The teacher, Mrs. Chen, gave him a wave. He waved back. Then he sat in the car for 30 seconds, allowing himself 1 moment of stillness before the day truly started. Being a father was the only thing Ryan had ever been certain about. Everything else in his life existed in shades of gray, compromises, and half measures. But Mia, she was the one thing he'd gotten absolutely right. His phone buzzed. "Elena Vaughn. Server migration status?" Ryan glanced at the dashboard clock. It was 7:51 a.m. Elena had probably been awake since 5, already through 2 meetings and a strategy session. Ryan, on track. Final testing this afternoon. Elena Vaughn, I need it done by noon. Ryan, that's 4 hours ahead of schedule. Elena Vaughn, then I suggest you drive faster. Ryan stared at the message. Then he put the car in gear and headed toward Vaughn Technologies, a gleaming glass tower in the financial district that looked like it had been designed specifically to intimidate people. The server room was freezing. Ryan had been elbow deep in cables for 3 hours, rerouting systems and praying nothing exploded. His team, 2 junior techs named Marcus and Priya, hovered nearby, occasionally handing him tools like nervous surgical assistants. How much longer? Marcus asked. Could be 5 minutes. Could be 5 hours. Elena's going to murder us if it's 5 hours. Long.
Elena's going to murder us anyway, Priya muttered. She murders everyone eventually. It's like her hobby.
Ryan didn't disagree, but he also didn't participate. You didn't survive 3 years working under Elena Vaughn by talking about her behind her back. You survived by keeping your head down, doing your job perfectly, and never, ever making her remember your name? He was excellent at being forgettable. At 11:47 a.m., the migration completed. Ryan ran diagnostics twice, checked for errors 3 times, then sent the report. Ryan, done. All systems operational. The reply came in less than 30 seconds. Elena Vaughn, my office, now. Marcus's eyes went wide. Dude, it's fine. Nobody gets called to her office unless they're getting promoted or fired, and she doesn't promote people. Thanks for the encouragement. Ryan took the elevator to the 23rd floor, where the executive suites existed in a separate atmosphere of polished marble and incomprehensible modern art. Elena's assistant, a sharp-eyed woman named Victoria, nodded him toward the double doors. She's waiting. Ryan knocked once, then entered. Elena Vaughn sat behind a desk that probably cost more than his car, her attention fixed on 3 monitors displaying what looked like financial reports. She was 30 years old, which meant she was somehow younger than Ryan and infinitely more successful. Her dark hair was pulled into a ruthlessly neat bun. Her suit was charcoal gray and looked like it had been tailored by someone who charged by the minute. She didn't look up. The Singapore office reported latency issues during the migration, she said. Ryan's stomach dropped. I'll check the logs. I already had Priya check. User error on their end, not your problem. She finally glanced up, her gray eyes scanning him with the warmth of a tax audit. You finished 4 hours early. You asked for noon. I asked because I didn't think you could do it. She leaned back in her chair. Apparently I was wrong. Ryan wasn't sure if that was a compliment or an accusation. With Elena, it was hard to tell. Thank you? He tried. Don't thank me. I'm about to make your life significantly harder. She stood, walked to the window overlooking the city. I'm hosting an investor dinner tomorrow night. High stakes. 8 figures on the line. I need someone reliable. You want me to handle the tech setup? I want you to be my date. Ryan blinked. I'm sorry. What? Elena turned, and for the first time since he'd met her, she looked something other than perfectly composed. She looked annoyed. There's a situation, she said. One of the investors, Richard Crane, has decided that my age and gender make me a liability. He's convinced I'm not serious about the company because I'm not settled. His words, not mine. That's insane. That's venture capital. She crossed her arms. He controls a consortium that represents 40% of our next funding round. If he pulls out, the deal collapses. If the deal collapses, we lose our competitive edge. If we lose our edge, we lose everything. Ryan's head was spinning. Okay, but I still don't understand why. I told him I'm engaged. Short. The words landed like a brick through glass. You what? It was a strategic decision made in the moment, Elena said, her tone clipped. He was pushing, I needed leverage, and I made a choice. Now I need to follow through. By bringing me? You're presentable. You're competent. You don't talk much, which is ideal. She paused. And you have a daughter, which adds a layer of authenticity. Ryan felt something cold settle in his chest. You want to use Mia?
I want to use the fact of Mia, not the child herself. She won't be anywhere near this.
That's not better.
Elena's expression hardened. Mr. Carter, I'm offering you a substantial bonus for one evening of your time. You show up, smile when appropriate, and let me handle the rest.
In exchange, you'll receive $20,000.
Ryan's breath caught.
20,000. That was Mia's preschool for a year. That was the medical bills from her last ear infection. That was the security deposit on a bigger apartment in a better school district.
This is crazy, he said. This is business. You're asking me to lie to investors. I'm asking you to stand next to me and not correct their assumptions. There's a difference. Ryan wanted to say no.
Every instinct screamed at him to walk out, to refuse, to maintain the careful, quiet life he'd built. But $20,000 wasn't hypothetical. It was Mia's future. It was breathing room. It was the kind of opportunity that didn't come twice.
One dinner, he said finally.
One dinner each.
And Mia stays out of it completely. Agreed. Elena extended her hand. Ryan shook it, her grip firm and cool. He had no idea he'd just made a deal with a hurricane. Tits.
The next evening, Ryan stood in front of his bathroom mirror wearing a suit he'd bought from a thrift store and praying it didn't look as cheap as it felt. Marcus had helped him pick a tie. Mia had insisted on giving him a fancy inspection, which mostly involved her poking his collar and declaring him okay but not prince level.
"Where are you going again?" she asked, sitting on the closed toilet lid.
"Work thing. Boring. Very." "Is Elena going to be there?"
Ryan adjusted his cufflinks, borrowed from Marcus, who apparently owned cufflinks. "Yeah." "Tell her I said hi." "I will not be doing that." Mia kicked her legs. "Why not?" "Because Elena doesn't do hi. Everyone does hi. Not Elena." Mrs. Ramirez from next door was watching Mia for the evening,
which meant Mia would be fed approximately 7 cookies and allowed to stay up an extra hour. Ryan had surrendered to this reality years ago. He arrived at the restaurant, someplace called Aurelius, with a name that sounded like a Roman emperor and a menu that probably cost more than his rent, at exactly 7 p.m. A valet took his beat-up Honda with a look of profound confusion. Inside, the lighting was dim and golden. Soft jazz played from invisible speakers. Everyone looked expensive. Ryan felt like a fraud.
"Mr. Carter."
He turned. Elena stood near the host station, and for a moment he forgot how to breathe. She wore a black dress that was somehow both elegant and severe, her hair down for once, falling in dark waves past her shoulders. She looked like she belonged here, like she'd been carved from the same marble as the floors.
"You're on time," she said. "You sound surprised." "I'm always surprised when people meet expectations."
She looked him over, her gaze clinical. "The suit works. Try to relax your shoulders. You look like you're about to be executed." "I feel like I'm about to be executed."
"Good. Use that."
She took his arm, her hand light, impersonal. "Richard Crane is already here with his wife. 2 other investors will join us shortly. Let me do the talking. You're here to smile and look stable."
"Stable."
"Stable, grounded, like you have a mortgage and a retirement plan. I have neither of those things." "Then lie better." They were escorted to a private dining room where a man in his 60s sat with a woman who looked like she'd been polished to a high shine. Richard Crane stood immediately, his handshake aggressive.
"Elena, wonderful to see you." His eyes slid to Ryan. "And this must be the mysterious fiancé." "Ryan Carter," Elena said smoothly. "Ryan, this is Richard Crane and his wife Margaret."
Ryan shook hands, trying to channel something other than terror. "Pleasure to meet you." Puss.
"Elena's been keeping you a secret," Richard said, his smile sharp. "We were beginning to think you didn't exist." "I prefer to stay out of the spotlight," Ryan said. "Humble. I like that."
Richard gestured to the table. "Please, sit. Let's eat." The dinner was a minefield. Every question felt loaded. Every glance from Richard carried weight. Ryan answered when spoken to, kept his responses short, and let Elena steer the conversation with the precision of a general directing troops.
"So, Ryan," Margaret said over the second course, "Elena mentioned you have a daughter?" Ryan's chest tightened. Yes, Mia. She's 5. How lovely. And how did you two meet?
Elena's hand found his under the table, a brief squeeze that he interpreted as stay calm. We work together, Ryan said. I'm in IT at Vaughn Technologies. Richard's eyebrows rose. You work for Elena? With, Elena corrected. Ryan's department handles our infrastructure. We crossed paths during a server migration project. He was the only person in the building who didn't panic when the system crashed at 2 a.m. It was a lie wrapped in enough truth to sound plausible. Ryan played along. I'm good under pressure, he said. Clearly. Richard sipped his wine. And you're comfortable with Elena's schedule, the travel, the long hours? Both. Ryan met Elena's eyes across the table. Something unspoken passed between them. Mia and I have a routine, he said carefully. Elena respects that. We make it work. Modern relationships, Margaret said with a smile that didn't reach her eyes. How progressive. The conversation shifted to business, numbers and projections that Ryan barely followed. He nodded when it seemed appropriate, sipped water when his hands needed something to do, and tried not to think about how much he was being paid to sit here and pretend his life was something it wasn't. Then Richard leaned back, his expression calculating. Elena, I'll be honest. When you first told me about Ryan, I had my doubts. A CEO your age, unmarried, no visible personal life. It raises questions about priorities. Elena's smile was razor thin. My priorities are the company's success. Of course. But investors want stability. They want to know you're not going to burn out or walk away when things get difficult. He gestured to Ryan. This helps. A partner, a family. It shows maturity. Ryan felt sick. I'm glad you approve, Elena said. I do. Which is why I'm prepared to move forward with the full consortium investment, $40 million, as discussed. Elena didn't react, but Ryan felt her tension ease fractionally. Didn't react, but that's excellent news, Richard. On one condition. The room went quiet. What condition? Elena asked. Richard smiled. I want to meet the daughter. They left the restaurant at 11 p.m. Ryan's head was pounding. Elena walked 3 steps ahead, her heels clicking against the pavement like gunshots. That, she said, could have gone worse. He wants to meet Mia. I heard him. That wasn't part of the deal. Elena stopped, turned. The deal was one dinner. We completed one dinner. What happens next is a separate negotiation. There's no negotiation. Mia's not part of this. Ryan, no. He stepped closer, his voice low and hard. I don't care about the money. I don't care about your investors. You're not using my daughter to close a deal. For a moment, Elena just looked at him. Then she nodded. Understood. Ryan blinked. What? I said understood. You're right. That crosses a line. She pulled out her phone. I'll find another way to satisfy Richard's concerns. The arrangement ends here. Just like that? Just like that. She glanced up. Though you should know, the $20,000 will still be deposited into your account tomorrow. You earned it. Ryan didn't know what to say. Elena Vaughn didn't back down. She didn't concede. But here she was, doing both. Thank you, he said finally. Elena's expression softened. Just barely, just for a second. You're a good father, Mr. Carter. That's rare. Then she turned and walked toward the valet, leaving Ryan standing alone on the sidewalk, wondering what the hell had just happened. At 2:37 a.m., Ryan's phone rang. He jolted awake, heart racing, immediately thinking something had happened to Mia, but she was asleep in her room. He could hear her soft breathing through the monitor. The caller ID read Elena Vaughn. Hello? I need you to come to the office. Her voice was tight, controlled, but there was something underneath it, something wrong. What's going on? Richard Crane just pulled the entire investment. Ryan sat up. What? Why? Because someone sent him evidence that our engagement is fake. The floor dropped out from under him. How? I don't know. But he's threatening to go public unless I come clean, which will tank our stock price and destroy the next funding round. A pause.
Ryan, I need your help. I can't. Please. The word was so quiet, so stripped of her usual armor, that Ryan almost didn't recognize her voice. He thought of Mia, asleep and safe. He thought of the $20,000. He thought of Elena standing on the sidewalk, telling him he was a good father. "I'll be there in 20 minutes, he said. When he arrived, the office was dark except for Elena's suite. She sat at her desk, 3 monitors glowing, her expression unreadable. "Show me," Ryan said. She turned one screen toward him. An email. Anonymous sender. Attached were photos from the restaurant. Him and Elena, time-stamped and annotated. The message was brief. Fake engagement. Fake relationship. Thought you should know before you invest $40 million in a lie. Who would do this? Ryan asked. Someone who wants to see me fail. Elena's hands were shaking. She noticed, clenched them into fists. The investor summit is in 3 days. Every major player in the industry will be there. If Richard exposes this publicly, it's over. The company, my reputation, everything. Can you talk to him? Explain? I tried. He won't answer. She looked at Ryan, and for the first time, he saw fear in her eyes. There's only one option left. What? We don't deny it. We double down. Oh, Ryan stared at her. You want to keep lying. I want to make it real. Elena. Not actually real, but real enough that nobody can prove otherwise. We attend the summit together. We act like a couple. We give interviews, take photos, show up as a united front. We make the lie so convincing that even if Richard has doubts, he can't prove anything. That's insane. That's survival. She stood, walked around the desk. Ryan, I'm not asking you to marry me. I'm asking you to help me save something I've spent 10 years building. 3 days. That's all I need. Ryan thought about his daughter, about the quiet life he'd built, about all the ways this could go catastrophically wrong. How much? He asked. Elena named a figure. Ryan's knees went weak. It was enough to change everything, enough to secure Mia's future for years, enough to be impossible to refuse. 3 days, he said. Elena exhaled. 3 days. They shook hands again. This time, Ryan noticed hers were still trembling. He was about to ask if she was okay when her phone buzzed. She glanced at it, and her face went pale. What? She turned the screen toward him. It was a message from Richard Crane. Looking forward to seeing you and your fiancé at the summit. I've arranged a special presentation. Let's see how real this relationship actually is. Ryan read it twice. What kind of presentation? He asked. Elena's voice was barely a whisper. I have no idea. And that's when Ryan realized he wasn't just in over his head. He was drowning. The coffee in Ryan's hand had gone cold an hour ago, but he kept holding it anyway, staring at the steam that had long since stopped rising. Elena sat across from him in her office, laptop open, her face lit by the blue glow of too many spreadsheets and not enough sleep. It was 4 a.m. They'd been here since he arrived, trying to build a strategy out of desperation and whatever scraps of credibility they had left. We need a story, Elena said for the 3rd time. Something consistent, something that doesn't fall apart the second someone asks a follow-up question. Ryan rubbed his eyes. We met at work. We kept it quiet because of company policy. That's already what we told Richard. That's the outline. I'm talking about details. How long have we been together? Who made the first move? Why now? Richard's going to test us, and if our answers don't match, then we're done. I get it. Elena's jaw tightened. She wasn't used to being interrupted, but she was too tired to fight about it. Fine, let's start simple. How long? 6 months? Too short. People will question why we're engaged already. A year? Better. Long enough to be serious, short enough that people won't ask why they've never heard of me. She typed something. First date. Where did we go? Ryan's mind went blank. I don't know. A restaurant? Which one? Does it matter? Oh, everything matters. Elena looked up, her eyes sharp despite the exhaustion. Richard Crane is a man who measures worth in details. If we can't tell him where we had our first kiss, he'll know we're lying. Ryan set down his coffee cup harder than he meant to. This is insane. You know that, right?
We're building a fake relationship like it's a product launch.
It is a product launch.
The product is us. And if we don't sell it, everything collapses. Maybe it should.
The words came out before Ryan could stop them. Elena went very still.
What did you say?
I said maybe it should collapse. You built this company on your own terms, right? By being smarter and tougher than everyone else.
And now you're lying to investors because one old man decided your personal life matters more than your balance sheet. Doesn't that piss you off?
Elena's expression was unreadable. Then quietly, she said, every single day. Ryan hadn't expected that. But being angry doesn't pay salaries, she continued. It doesn't fund R&D or keep the lights on. Richard Crane controls $40 million. $40 million that I need to stay competitive. So yes, I'm lying.
Because the alternative is watching everything I've built fall apart because I'm 30 and unmarried. Her voice cracked on the last word. Just barely, just enough that Ryan noticed. He exhaled. First date, there's a Thai place near my apartment, tiny. No one goes there. We could say that. Elena typed it in. What did you order? Pad see ew. You had green curry, but you complained it wasn't spicy enough, so I dared you to try the chef's special level. And you actually did it, and then you cried. Elena's fingers paused on the keyboard.
I don't cry.
It's a story, Elena. You're allowed to be human in it. She stared at him for a long moment. Then she kept typing. They worked through the night, building a relationship out of nothing. Every detail was negotiated, refined, memorized. Ryan learned that Elena supposedly loved old movies but hated popcorn. That she'd been the one to say I love you first, 3 months in, during a weekend trip to the coast that never happened. That Ryan had proposed on a Tuesday, because he'd always thought grand romantic gestures were performative and he'd wanted it to be real. The irony wasn't lost on either of them. By the time the sun came up, they had a timeline, a narrative, and matching stories that could survive at least surface-level scrutiny. What they didn't have was a plan for Richard's special presentation. We need to know what he's planning, Ryan said. Agreed, but Richard isn't going to tell us. Elena closed her laptop. Finally. We'll have to improvise. You want to walk into a room full of investors with no idea what's coming? I want to walk into that room looking so confident that Richard second guesses whatever trap he's set. She stood, stretched, winced. Go home. Get some sleep. We have 2 days to prepare. Ryan should have left. Should have gone back to his apartment, picked up Mia from Mrs. Ramirez's place, pretended everything was normal. Instead, he said, When's the last time you slept? Elena blinked, caught off guard. I don't see how that's relevant. You're running on fumes. You can't negotiate a $40 million deal if you're about to collapse. I'm fine. You're not. Ryan crossed his arms. Look, I get it. You're Elena Vaughn. You don't sleep, you don't eat, you definitely don't show weakness. But if we're doing this, if we're actually going to sell this relationship, you need to stop looking like you're about to shatter. Her eyes narrowed. Careful, Mr. Carter. Or what? You'll fire me. We both know you need me right now. The silence stretched between them, taut and dangerous. Then Elena laughed. It was short, humorless, but real. You're right, she said. I do need you, which is why I'm asking you to trust me when I say I can handle this. Can you? The question hung in the air. Elena looked away first. I have to, she said quietly. Ryan didn't push. He just nodded, grabbed his jacket, and headed for the door. Ryan, he stopped. Thank you, Elena said, for staying. He wanted to tell her she didn't need to thank him, that he was doing this for the money, for Mia, for reasons that had nothing to do with her. But standing there, looking at this woman who'd built an empire and was now desperately trying to hold it together with lies and willpower, he couldn't quite make himself say it. Get some sleep, he said instead, and left. The apartment was quiet when he got home. Mia was still at preschool. He'd texted Mrs. Chen to let her know he'd be late picking up, and the silence felt wrong. Ryan sat on his fold-out couch, staring at nothing, trying to process the past 12 hours. His phone buzzed. Marcus. Dude, where are you? Elena's losing it. Ryan. I know, I'm handling it. Marcus. Are you sleeping with her? Ryan. What?
No.
Marcus. Then why did she call you at 3 a.m.? Ryan. It's complicated. Marcus. It's always complicated with her. Watch yourself, man. Ryan set the phone down. Marcus wasn't wrong. Elena Vaughn was complicated. She was also brilliant, ruthless, and currently dragging him into a disaster that could end both their careers. He should walk away. He should take the $20,000 she'd already paid him and disappear. But then he thought about the way her hands had shaken in her office, the crack in her voice when she'd talked about everything falling apart. Elena Vaughn was a lot of things, but she wasn't someone who asked for help, and she'd asked him. That had to mean something. Ryan picked up Mia at 3 p.m. She exploded out of the preschool doors like a small, overly enthusiastic cannonball. "Daddy, we made volcanoes today. With baking soda. It was so cool." "Yeah, did yours explode?"
It exploded the most. Mrs. Chen said I used too much vinegar, but I think I used the perfect amount. Ryan grinned despite himself. "Of course you did." They
stopped for ice cream on the way home. Vanilla for Mia, coffee for Ryan, both of them sitting on a bench outside the shop watching people walk by. "You look tired," Mia said, her face smeared with vanilla. "I am tired. Is work hard?" "Sometimes." "Is Elena being mean?" Ryan paused mid-bite. "Why would you think that?" Mia shrugged. "You always look sad when you talk about her." Out of the mouths of 5-year-olds. Ryan set down his ice cream. "Elena's not mean," he said carefully. "She's just under a lot of pressure." "Like when I have to clean my room?" "Kind of, but bigger." "Oh." Mia kicked her legs. "You should help her."
"I'm trying, Bug." "Good, because she smiled at me that one time, and I think she's nice. She just doesn't know it yet." Ryan looked at his daughter, this tiny human who somehow saw the world more clearly than most adults, and felt something tighten in his chest. "You're pretty smart, you know that?" Mia beamed. "I know." That night, after Mia was in bed, Ryan sat at his laptop and did something he'd been avoiding. He researched Richard Crane. The man was 63, a venture capitalist with a portfolio that read like a Fortune 500 index. He'd made his money in tech during the first dot-com boom and had survived every crash since by being smarter and more ruthless than everyone else. He was also, according to several articles, old-fashioned about business. He believed in traditional values, stable leadership, and personal accountability. He'd once pulled funding from a startup because the CEO got divorced mid-round. Ryan's stomach sank. This wasn't just about Elena being unmarried. This was about Richard's entire worldview. To him, a successful CEO needed a successful personal life. They needed stability, family, proof that they could manage their own house before managing a company. It was sexist, outdated, and completely legal. And Elena was trapped by it. Ryan's phone buzzed. "Elena Vaughn. Are you awake?" Ryan. "Unfortunately." Elena Vaughn. "I need to brief you on the summit schedule. Can you come by tomorrow morning?" Ryan. "What time?" Elena Vaughn. 6. Ryan. "Of course it's 6. Elena Vaughn. "I'll have coffee ready." Ryan. "You better." The next morning, Ryan arrived at Vaughn Technologies at 5:58 a.m. because showing up late to Elena's 6 a.m. meeting felt like it might actually kill him. She was already in her office, 2 monitors running financial projections, a third showing what looked like seating charts. "You're early," she said without looking up. "I'm on time." "Early for you." There was coffee, as promised. Good coffee, too. Ryan took a cup and sat down across from her desk. "The summit runs for 2 days," Elena began. "Day 1 is panels and networking. Day 2 is the main event, investor presentations. Richard's special presentation is scheduled for the afternoon session, second to last slot." "What's the last slot?" "Mine." She pulled up a document. "I'm presenting our 5-year growth strategy. It's supposed to be the closing argument for why his consortium should invest." "But if Richard exposes us before you present, then nobody will be listening to my strategy. They'll be listening to the scandal." Elena's expression was grim, which is why we need to be flawless. Every interaction, every conversation, every moment we're in that building needs to sell the story that we're a real couple.
No pressure. None at all. She slid a folder across the desk. I had Victoria pull together background files on every major investor attending. Study them. Know their names, their companies, their pet projects. If someone asks you a question, I need you to sound informed. Ryan flipped through the folder. There had to be 40 pages. When do I have time to memorize this? Between now and tomorrow morning. Elena Shaw. I know. She held up a hand. I know I'm asking a lot, but this is what it takes. Richard is going to be watching us, looking for cracks. We can't give him any. Ryan stared at the folder, then at Elena. She looked exhausted. Her suit was perfect, her hair flawless, but there were shadows under her eyes that makeup couldn't quite hide. What happens if we fail? He asked. Elena was quiet for a moment. Then I lose the company, and you lose your job, and everyone who depends on Vaughn Technologies loses theirs too. So no pressure. This time she almost smiled. Exactly. They spent the next 3 hours running through scenarios. Elena played the role of various investors, firing questions at Ryan, critiquing his answers, making him repeat things until they sounded natural. It was exhausting. It was also weirdly effective. By the time they broke for lunch, Ryan could name 15 major investors, knew the difference between Series A and Series B funding, and could discuss Elena's growth strategy without sounding like he was reading from a script. You're a faster learner than I expected, Elena said. I have a 5-year-old. I'm used to high-pressure memorization. Ryan stretched. Last week she made me learn all the state capitals. Did you? Yeah. I got through 30 before she got bored and decided we should build a fort instead. Elena's expression softened. She sounds like a handful. She's the best thing that ever happened to me. The words came out simple, honest. Elena looked at him for a long moment. Your ex, she said. Mia's mother. You don't talk about her. Ryan's jaw tightened. There's not much to talk about. But she's not in the picture, and that's all I'm saying about it. Us. Elena nodded slowly. Understood. They didn't speak for a few minutes. Then Elena said, I don't have siblings, no children. My parents died when I was 22, car accident. I built this company because I didn't have anything else. Ryan hadn't expected that. I'm sorry. Don't be. It made me who I am. She stood, walked to the window. But sometimes I wonder what it would be like to have someone who depends on you the way Mia depends on you. It's terrifying, Ryan said honestly. Every decision you make affects them. Every mistake has consequences. You can't just think about yourself anymore. That sounds exhausting. It is, but it's also... He paused, searching for the right words. It's the only thing that makes sense. Everything else is just noise. Elena turned, and for a moment she looked younger, uncertain. Do you think I'm making a mistake? She asked. Lying to Richard, risking everything on this. Ryan considered the question. I think you're doing what you have to do to survive. Whether that's right or wrong, I don't know, but I understand it. That's not an answer. It's the only one I've got. Elena studied him, then nodded. Fair enough. Ryan's phone buzzed, a text from Mrs. Chen. Mrs. Chen. Mia wants to know if you're coming to the spring concert tomorrow night. She's very insistent. Ryan's heart sank. The spring concert. He'd completely forgotten. Tomorrow night. The same night as the summit's opening reception. Problem? Elena asked. Mia has a concert tomorrow, at her preschool. I told her I'd be there. Elena's face was unreadable. The reception starts at 7. The concert's at 6:30. Ryan, I know it's bad timing, but I promised her. Elena was quiet. Then she said, Go to the concert. What? You heard me. Go. The reception is mostly cocktails and small talk. We don't need to be there for the whole thing. Show up at 8. I'll cover until then. Ryan stared at her. You're serious? I don't say things I don't mean. Elena returned to her desk. Besides, if someone asks where you are, I'll tell them you're with your daughter. It actually makes us look better, responsible, family-oriented. You're using my kid's concert as a PR move. Spicy bites. I'm letting you be a father. Take the win, Mr. Carter. Ryan didn't know what to say, so he just nodded. Thank you. Elena waved a hand dismissively. Don't make it weird, just don't be late. The rest of the day blurred together. Ryan went home, studied the investor files until his eyes crossed, made dinner for Mia, helped her practice her concert song, something about sunshine and friendship that she sang at maximum volume, and tried not to think about the fact that in 24 hours, he'd be standing in front of the most powerful people in tech, pretending to be someone he wasn't. That night, Mia climbed into his lap while he was reading through Elena's notes for the third time. Daddy, you're thinking too loud. Ryan blinked. What? You make a face when you're thinking too loud, like this. She scrunched up her face in what was probably supposed to be concentration, but looked more like she'd smelled something bad. I do not make that face. You totally do. Ryan set down the papers. Okay, Bug, what should I be thinking about instead? Ice cream or dinosaurs or ice cream dinosaurs? That's a terrifying image, Ethan. Mia giggled. Then more seriously she said, Are you nervous about tomorrow? A little. Don't be. You're going to be great. She patted his cheek with one small hand. You're always great. Ryan felt something crack open in his chest. He pulled Mia into a hug, holding on maybe a little too tight. Love you, Bug. Love you too, Daddy. The next morning arrived too fast. Ryan dropped Mia off at preschool, arrived at the office at 7:30, and found Elena already in full battle mode. She wore a navy suit that probably cost more than his car, her hair pulled back, her expression focused. Ready? She asked. No. Good, neither am I. She handed him a badge. The summit's at the Meridian Hotel. We're leaving in 10 minutes. Victoria's driving. The Meridian was downtown, a massive glass tower with a lobby that looked like it had been designed to make people feel small. The summit was being held on the 3rd floor, a sprawling conference space filled with people in expensive suits having expensive conversations. Ryan felt like he'd walked onto a movie set where he didn't know his lines. Stay close, Elena murmured. And smile. You look like you're about to be interrogated. I'm about to be interrogated. Then enjoy it. The morning was a blur of panels and presentations. Ryan sat in the back, trying to look engaged while CEOs talked about disruption and innovation and other words that sounded important but meant nothing. Elena was on stage for one panel, something about leadership in volatile markets, and she was electric, confident, articulate, completely in control. This was her world, and Ryan was just a tourist. At lunch, they were seated at a table with 6 other people, including a woman named Dr. Sarah Chen, who'd founded a biotech company, and a man named Marcus Teller, who'd made billions in cryptocurrency. So, Ryan, Marcus said, Elena tells us you're in IT. What's your take on blockchain integration in enterprise infrastructure? Ryan's mind went blank. Then he remembered something Elena had mentioned during their prep sessions. I think it's overhyped, he said. The security benefits are real, but the energy costs and scalability issues make it impractical for most applications. Companies are better off investing in traditional encryption and multi-factor authentication. Marcus raised his eyebrows. Interesting. Most tech guys are all in on blockchain. Well, most tech guys don't have to explain to their CFO why the power bill tripled. Marcus laughed. Fair point. Elena's hand found Ryan's under the table. A brief squeeze. Well done. The afternoon sessions dragged. Ryan checked his watch approximately every 3 minutes, calculating how long until he could leave for Mia's concert. At 5:30, Elena leaned over and whispered, Go. You sure? Positive. I'll see you at 8. Ryan slipped out, also, feeling guilty and relieved in equal measure. The preschool was packed with parents, all of them crowding into a gym decorated with construction paper flowers and hand-painted banners. Ryan found a seat in the back just as the lights dimmed. Mia appeared on stage in a yellow dress, holding hands with 2 other kids. When she spotted him, her entire face lit up. The concert was chaotic. Kids forgot lyrics, wandered off stage, waved at their parents mid-song. It was perfect. Afterward, Mia ran to him, launching herself into his arms. Did you see me? I remembered all the words. You were amazing, Bug. Can we get ice cream? Not tonight. I have to go back to work. Her face fell. But you just got here. I know. I'm sorry. Ryan knelt down to her level.
But I promise, next week we'll do whatever you want. Ice cream, park, movies. Your choice. Mia considered this. Mia, even if I want to go to the dinosaur museum? Even then. Okay. She hugged him. Love you, Daddy. Love you too. Ryan left her with Mrs. Ramirez, drove back downtown, and arrived at the Meridian at 8:03 p.m. The reception was in full swing. Music, champagne, people networking like their lives depended on it. He found Elena talking to a group of investors near the bar. She saw him, excused herself, and walked over. How was the concert? She asked. Loud, chaotic, perfect. Something in her expression shifted. I'm glad you went. Me too. They stood there for a moment, the noise of the party fading into background static. Then Elena said, We should make an appearance. Richard's been watching the door. Ryan followed her gaze. Sure enough, Richard Crane stood near the entrance, talking to a younger man in an expensive suit. When he spotted them, he smiled. It wasn't a friendly smile. Here we go, Elena murmured. Richard approached, the younger man trailing behind. Elena, Ryan, wonderful to see you both. He gestured to his companion. This is my son, David. He's joining the consortium as an associate partner. David shook their hands. He had his father's sharp eyes, but none of his warmth. I've heard a lot about you, David said to Elena. My father speaks very highly of your work. That's kind of him. And you, Ryan? David's gaze was assessing. Dad mentioned you have a daughter. Mia. She's 5. Must be hard balancing work and family. There was something pointed in the way he said it. Ryan felt Elena tense beside him. We make it work, Ryan said evenly. I'm sure you do. David smiled. Actually, I'd love to hear more about that. How exactly do you balance a relationship with someone as demanding as Elena? That must take considerable flexibility. Ryan understood immediately what was happening. This wasn't small talk. This was a test. Elena's driven, Ryan said. But so am I. We both have priorities. We both respect that. And Mia? She's comfortable with Elena's schedule. Mia's comfortable with whatever makes her father happy. David's smile widened. That's sweet. How long have they known each other? Elena stepped in smoothly. A few months. Ryan was cautious about introductions, understandably so. Of course. David glanced at his father. Well, I'm sure we'll have plenty of time to talk tomorrow. Dad's presentation should be illuminating. Richard's expression was unreadable. Indeed. They walked away. Ryan exhaled slowly. That was a threat, he said. I know. What are we going to do? Elena's jaw was set. We're going to survive. But later that night, alone in his apartment, Ryan couldn't shake the feeling that survival wasn't going to be enough. Whatever Richard Crane had planned, it was going to test more than just their story. It was going to test who they were willing to become. Ryan didn't sleep that night. He lay on his fold-out couch, staring at the ceiling, running through every possible scenario of how Richard's presentation could go wrong. By the time his alarm went off at 5:30, he'd imagined at least 40 different disasters, each worse than the last. He got Mia ready in a fog, barely registering her chatter about the Play-Doh project they were doing at school today. Mrs. Chen gave him a concerned look when he dropped Mia off. You okay, Ryan? Just work stuff. You look like you haven't slept in a week. That's because I haven't. Mrs. Chen patted his arm. Whatever it is, you'll get through it. You always do. Ryan wished he had her confidence. He arrived at the Meridian at 7 a.m. The summit's second day didn't officially start until 9, but Elena had texted him at 6 asking him to come early. He found her in a small conference room on the 4th floor, surrounded by papers, and looking like she'd been awake for the entire night. Please tell me you slept, Ryan said. Elena didn't look up from her laptop. Define sleep. Unconscious, in a bed, for more than 20 minutes. Then no, Ryan grabbed the coffee pot from the corner table and poured her a cup. Drink this. I've had 6 already. Then have a 7th. You're presenting in... He checked his watch. 6 hours. You need to be sharp. Elena finally looked at him, and he was startled by how vulnerable she looked. The armor was still there, the perfect suit and the controlled expression, but underneath it was something raw. What if we can't pull this off? She asked quietly.
Ryan set down the coffee pot. We will. You don't know that. No, but I know you, and you don't build a company from nothing by giving up when things get hard. This is different. This isn't about strategy or numbers. This is about Richard standing up in front of everyone and proving we're liars. Then we prove him wrong. How? Ryan didn't have an answer. He sat down across from her, the silence stretching between them like a physical thing. Tell me something, he said finally. Why does this company matter so much to you? Elena's hand stilled on her keyboard. What kind of question is that? An honest one. She was quiet for a long time. Then she said, When my parents died, I had nothing. No siblings, no extended family, no trust fund. Just a business degree and a lot of anger. I started Vaughn Technologies because I needed to prove that I could build something that lasted, something that mattered. And you did. Did I? Because right now it feels like I'm about to watch it all disappear because I couldn't play by someone else's rules. Ryan leaned forward. You know what I see when I look at this company? I see 300 people who have jobs because of you. I see technology that actually works because you demanded perfection. I see something real that you built with your own hands. That's not going to save us if Richard... I'm not done. Ryan held her gaze. I also see someone who's so afraid of losing control that she's forgotten why she started fighting in the first place. You didn't build this company to impress Richard Crane. You built it because you wanted to create something that couldn't be taken away from you. So stop acting like his opinion is the only thing that matters. Elena stared at him. Then, to his complete shock, she laughed. It was short and a little broken, but real. You're right, she said. I hate that you're right, but you are. I have that effect on people. Mia must be very tired of you. Constantly. Elena smiled, and for just a moment, the weight seemed to lift from her shoulders. Then her phone buzzed and reality came crashing back. The morning session starts in an hour, she said. We should go downstairs. The conference hall was filling up fast. Investors clustered in small groups, their conversations hushed but intense. Ryan spotted David Crane near the front, talking to a woman with silver hair and an expression that suggested she'd seen every trick in the book and wasn't impressed by any of them. That's Margaret Rothschild, Elena murmured. She controls a media empire. If Richard's planning to expose us publicly, she's the one who'll make sure it goes viral. Great. No pressure. I thought we established there's no pressure. I lied. They found seats in the third row. Ryan's hands were sweating. He wiped them on his pants and tried to look like he belonged here, like he attended billion-dollar investor summits every day. The morning panels were excruciating. CEOs talked about market trends and disruption strategies while Ryan sat there thinking about all the ways this could go wrong. Elena was called up for a panel on innovation leadership, and she was brilliant, sharp, confident, every inch the CEO who belonged in this room. But Ryan could see the tension in her shoulders. The way her smile didn't quite reach her eyes. She was terrified. At noon, they broke for lunch. Ryan followed Elena to the buffet, where she picked at a salad while pretending to listen to an investor talk about cryptocurrency regulations. You need to eat, Ryan said quietly. I'm fine. You're running on coffee and anxiety. That's not sustainable. Elena stabbed a tomato with more force than necessary. I don't need a lecture on self-care right now. Then consider it friendly advice. We're not friends, Ryan. We're colleagues in a mutually beneficial arrangement. The words stung more than they should have. Ryan set down his plate. Right, of course. Elena's expression flickered with something that might have been regret, but before she could say anything, Richard Crane appeared at their table. Elena, Ryan, mind if I join you? It wasn't really a question. Richard sat down, his smile pleasant and completely empty. Big afternoon ahead, Wes, he said. I imagine you're both feeling the pressure. We're feeling confident, Elena said smoothly. Confidence is good, but it's not a substitute for authenticity. Richard cut into his chicken with surgical precision. I've spent 40 years in this business, Elena. I've seen every kind of pitch, every kind of performance, and I can always tell when someone's selling me a story. Is there a point to this, Richard? Just making conversation. He took a bite, chewed slowly. David was telling me about his chat with you both last night. He found it very, enlightening. Ryan's pulse kicked up. We enjoyed meeting him. He's a sharp kid, asks good questions, the kind of questions that reveal things people might prefer to keep hidden. Elena's fork scraped against her plate. If you have something to say, Richard, say it. Richard smiled. I'm saying that I'm looking forward to this afternoon's presentations, particularly mine. He stood, dabbed at his mouth with a napkin. See you both at 2. He walked away. Elena's hands were shaking. He knows, she said. He's guessing. He knows Ryan, and whatever he's planning, we'll handle it. You keep saying that like it's going to make it true. Ryan turned to face her fully. Because the alternative is giving up, and I don't think you know how to do that. Elena met his eyes, and something passed between them. Something that felt dangerous and necessary at the same time. No, she said quietly. I don't. The afternoon session started at 2 p.m. sharp. The conference hall was packed now, every seat filled with investors and industry leaders who'd come to see the main presentations. Ryan sat beside Elena in the front row, his heart hammering against his ribs. The first presentation was from a healthcare startup pitching an AI diagnostic platform. Ryan barely heard a word of it. All he could think about was Richard sitting 3 rows back, waiting. The second presentation was a fintech company. The CEO was confident, polished, clearly used to rooms like this. Then came the break before Richard's slot. Elena excused herself to the restroom, and Ryan was left alone with his thoughts and the growing certainty that they were about to walk into an ambush. David Crane appeared beside him. Nervous? David asked. Should I be? That depends. David leaned against the wall, his posture casual but his eyes sharp. My father's very thorough. When he commits to something, he sees it through. Ismam Manbam. Sounds like someone else I know. David smiled. Elena's impressive. I'll give her that. But impressive doesn't mean honest. What's that supposed to mean? It means everyone has secrets, Ryan, and my father's very good at finding them. Before Ryan could respond, Elena returned. David straightened, nodded politely, and walked away. What did he want? Elena asked. To rattle us. Did it work? Ryan looked at her. Yeah. At 2:45, Richard Crane took the stage. He looked calm, comfortable, like he was about to deliver a lecture rather than potentially destroy someone's career. The screen behind him lit up with the words, Partnership and Trust, the foundation of modern investment. Good afternoon, Richard began. I've spent the last 40 years building relationships in this industry. And if there's one thing I've learned, it's that trust is everything. Without trust, we have nothing. Ryan's hands gripped the armrests. Today I want to talk about what trust means in the context of investment partnerships. What it looks like when a CEO presents one version of themselves to the world and lives another version in private. Elena's breathing had gone shallow. Some of you may know that I've been considering a significant investment in Vaughn Technologies. It's a strong company with impressive numbers, but numbers only tell part of the story. Richard clicked a remote. The screen changed. It showed a photograph of Elena and Ryan at the restaurant dinner. Professional, neutral. Nothing damaging. This is Elena Vaughn and her fiancé, Ryan Carter, Richard continued. They presented themselves as a stable, committed couple, the kind of partnership that suggests maturity and balance. Another click, another photo, this one from the summit reception. Elena and Ryan standing together, both looking tense. But here's what I find interesting, Richard said. When you look at the timeline of their relationship, certain things don't add up. Ryan's stomach dropped. Richard advanced the slide again. This time it was a timeline, dates, locations, events. And highlighted in red were inconsistencies, small ones, but there. According to Mr. Carter, they had their first date at a Thai restaurant in March of last year. But according to Elena's social media, which she's since deleted, but the internet remembers everything. She was in Singapore that entire week for a conference. The room went silent. Small discrepancy, right? Could be a mistake. Richard smiled. Except there are others. Their engagement story places Ryan proposing in January, but in January, Elena's assistant sent out an email blast inviting people to Elena's birthday party, A party for a woman celebrating being happily single. Elena stood up. Richard, I'm not finished.
Richard's voice didn't rise, but it cut through the room like a blade. I don't care about your personal life, Elena. I really don't. What I care about is honesty.
And when someone lies to me about something as fundamental as who they are, I have to question what else they're lying about. The room erupted in whispers. The room erupted. Ryan saw Margaret Rothschild lean forward, her eyes gleaming with interest. Elena's voice was ice. You're making assumptions based on circumstantial evidence. Am I? Then please, enlighten me. Tell me I'm wrong. Every eye in the room turned to them. Ryan stood up. He didn't plan it. Didn't think about it. He just stood, his legs moving before his brain caught up. You want to talk about trust? Ryan said, his voice rough but clear. Fine, let's talk about it.
Richard raised an eyebrow. Mr. Carter. No. You had your turn. Now it's mine. Ryan stepped into the aisle, facing the room. You're right about the timeline. We got the dates wrong. You know why? Because when you're living your life,
you're not thinking about creating a perfect narrative for investors. You're just living. That's a convenient excuse, David called from the back.
It's the truth. Ryan's hands were shaking, but he kept going. Did we exaggerate how long we've been together? Yeah.
Because Elena was backed into a corner by your father's outdated idea of what a CEO should look like. She has to prove she's stable, settled, traditional, all these things that have nothing to do with whether she can run a company. Ryan, Elena said quietly, stop. But Ryan couldn't stop. All the anger, all the frustration of the past week came pouring out. You want to know what I see when I look at Elena Vaughn? I see someone who's worked harder than anyone in this room, who's built something real while you all sat around deciding whether she's serious enough based on whether she has a ring on her finger. That's not trust. That's control. The room was dead silent. So yeah, we lied about the details. We got dates wrong. But the part that matters, the part about Elena being someone worth investing in, that's not a lie. That's the only truth that should matter. Ryan sat down. His heart was hammering so hard he thought it might break through his chest. Richard stared at him for a long moment. Then he turned to Elena. Is that your position as well? Richard asked. That the ends justify the means? Elena stood. Her face was pale, but her voice was steady. No, she said. Ryan's right that your standards are archaic, but he's wrong about the lying. You deserved the truth, and I didn't give it to you. She took a breath. The engagement is fake. Ryan and I aren't together. I brought him to that dinner because I was desperate and I made a bad call. The whispers turned into a roar. Ryan grabbed Elena's arm. What are you doing? He hissed. What I should have done from the start. She pulled away, faced Richard. But here's what's also true. Vala Technologies is sound. Our 5-year plan is solid. Our numbers are real. And if you choose not to invest because I'm not married, then that says more about your priorities than mine. Richard's expression was unreadable. Then he started to clap. It was slow, deliberate. After a moment, Margaret Rothschild joined him. Then others. Ryan had no idea what was happening. That, Richard said, took courage. Elena blinked. What? I didn't come here to humiliate you, Elena. I came here to see what you'd do when your back was against the wall. Oh, Richard walked down the aisle toward them. You could have kept lying, doubled down. Most people would have. But you chose honesty even though it cost you. I don't understand. I've been in this business for 40 years, and you know what's rarer than a good investment? A CEO who knows when to admit they're wrong. He extended his hand. The 40 million stands, if you still want it. Elena stared at his hand like it might disappear. You're serious. Completely. But I have one condition. Ryan's chest tightened. What condition? Richard looked at him. That you keep doing what you just did. Calling out the people in this room when they're being idiots. We could use more of that. Ryan didn't know what to say. Elena shook Richard's hand, her expression stunned. Thank you. Don't thank me yet. You still have to present. Richard checked his watch. You're up in 10 minutes. I suggest you use that time to figure out what you're actually going to say. He walked back to his seat. The room slowly started to buzz with conversation again, people processing what they'd just witnessed. Elena turned to Ryan, her eyes wide. What just happened?
I have no idea.
You went off script.
I know.
You told a room full of investors that they were idiots.
I'm aware.
Elena's laugh was slightly hysterical. That was either the bravest thing I've ever seen or the stupidest. Probably both. They stood there for a moment, the chaos of the room swirling around them. Then Elena said, I need to rewrite my entire presentation. You have 8 minutes. Then I'd better talk fast. She pulled out her laptop, and Ryan watched as she deleted slide after slide, typing furiously. Her hands were steady now, her focus absolute. This was Elena in her element. Not performing, not pretending, just building something real in real time. At 2:58, the moderator called for the next presentation. Elena closed her laptop and walked to the stage. Ryan had never been more terrified in his life. Elena stood at the podium, looking out at a room full of people who'd just watched her admit to lying. She didn't have notes, didn't have slides anymore, just herself and whatever she was about to say. I was going to show you a 5-year growth projection, she began. Charts, numbers, all the things that make investors happy. But that feels dishonest after what just happened. Someone in the back laughed nervously. So instead, I'm going to tell you what Vaughn Technologies actually is. Elena's voice was clear, strong. It's a company built by someone who had no business starting a company. No connections, no family money, no backup plan. Just an idea and a lot of stubbornness. She paused, gathering her thoughts. We're not perfect. We've made mistakes. We've had product launches that failed, features that didn't work, entire quarters where we barely stayed afloat. But we kept going because we believed in building something that mattered. Ryan leaned forward in his seat. Richard asked about trust earlier, and he's right. Trust is everything. So here's what I can promise you. I will never lie to you about the numbers. I will never pretend we're something we're not. And I will fight like hell to make sure this company succeeds. Not because I need to prove something to myself, but because 300 people depend on us getting it right. The room was silent. So if you want polished, if you want someone who always says the right thing and never admits mistakes, I'm not your CEO. But if you want someone who will build something real and fight for it every single day, then let's talk. Elena stepped away from the podium. The applause started slowly, then built. Ryan stood, clapping until his hands hurt. Margaret Rothschild stood next. Then others. Within seconds, half the room was on their feet. Elena looked shocked. Then she smiled, and it was the first genuine smile Ryan had seen from her since this whole thing started. She walked off stage and straight to Ryan. Did that actually just work? She asked. I think it did. I have no idea what I'm doing. That makes 2 of us. They were laughing when David Crane appeared, his father beside him. That was impressive, David said, and for the first time he sounded sincere. Most people would have crashed and burned. Most people have better survival instincts, Elena said. Richard smiled. My team will reach out next week to finalize the paperwork. But Elena, next time you need help, just ask. You don't have to create an elaborate lie. Noted. Richard and David walked away. Elena turned to Ryan, her expression complicated. You defended me, she said. You defended yourself. After you went first. She hesitated. Why did you do that? You could have let me fall. Taken the money and walked away. Yes, Ryan thought about it. Because watching you give up felt wrong. And because Mia was right. About what? She said you're nice, you just don't know it yet. Elena's eyes went bright. She looked away quickly, blinking hard. Your daughter's smarter than both of us. I'm aware. They stood there for a moment, the noise of the summit fading into background static. Then Elena said, I should go talk to the other investors, start damage control. Want company? Actually, she paused. Go home. Be with Mia. You've done enough. Elena Che, I mean it, Ryan. Thank you for everything. She walked away before he could respond, disappearing into a crowd of investors, all wanting to talk to the CEO, who just admitted to lying and somehow made it work. Ryan left the Meridian in a daze. He picked up Mia from preschool, and she chattered the entire way home about the frog they'd found in the playground. Can we keep it, Daddy?
No. But it's so cute. Still no. That night, after Mia was asleep, Ryan sat on his couch and tried to process the day. He'd stood up in front of the most powerful people in tech and called them out. Elena had bet her entire company on honesty, and somehow, impossibly, it had worked. His phone buzzed. Elena Vaughn. 7 investors approached me after the presentation. 6 want to set up meetings. 1 offered to increase their stake. Ryan. That's good, right? Elena Vaughn. That's incredible. None of this happens without you. Ryan. You did the hard part. Elena Vaughn. We both did. Ryan stared at the message for a long time. Then he typed, Ryan, what happens now? The response took a while. Elena Vaughn. I have no idea. But I'd like to figure it out, if you're willing. Ryan thought about Mia, asleep in the next room. About the life he'd built, careful and small and safe. About Elena Vaughn, brilliant and terrifying and completely unpredictable. Ryan. I'm willing. Elena Vaughn. Good, because I think we're just getting started. Ryan set down his phone and looked out the window at the city lights stretching into the distance. He had no idea what he'd just signed up for. But for the first time in a long time, he was willing to find out. The week after the summit felt like living in someone else's life. Ryan showed up to work Monday morning expecting everything to have returned to normal. Quiet cubicle, server maintenance, the comfortable anonymity of being a mid-level IT manager. Instead, he walked into the office and found Marcus and Priya staring at him like he'd grown a second head. Dude, Marcus said, you're famous. Ryan stopped walking. What? Priya spun her monitor around. It showed an article from TechCrunch with the headline, Vaughn Technologies CEO admits fake engagement, secures $40 million. Anyway, below it was a photo of Ryan standing in the conference hall, mid-speech, looking like he was about to either pass out or punch someone. That's not fame. That's a nightmare. Are you kidding? You called out Richard Crane in front of half the industry. People are calling you the guy who told venture capital to grow up. I didn't say that. You basically did. Marcus scrolled down to the comments section. Look, someone made a meme out of your face. You're officially viral. Ryan felt sick. I need coffee. He retreated to the break room, poured himself a cup that tasted like motor oil, and tried to process the fact that his face was now attached to think pieces about authenticity in corporate culture. His phone buzzed. Elena Vaughn. My office. Now, Ryan's stomach dropped. This was it. She was going to fire him for making a scene, for going off script, for turning what should have been a quiet disaster into a public spectacle. He took the elevator to the 23rd floor, where Victoria gave him a look that might have been sympathy or amusement. It was hard to tell with her. Elena was at her desk, 3 monitors running what looked like financial projections and media analytics. She glanced up when he entered. Close the door. Ryan did. Then he stood there, waiting for the axe to fall. Elena stood, walked to the window. We have a problem. I know, I'm sorry, I shouldn't have. Ryan, stop. She turned. The problem isn't what you said. The problem is that investors won't stop calling me about you. Ryan blinked. What? Usiki? Mom? Won't. 3 different VCs have asked if you'd be willing to consult on their portfolio companies. Margaret Rothschild wants you to speak at her leadership summit. And Richard Crane emailed this morning to say you have executive presence and we should consider promoting you. Ryan's brain stalled. That's insane. That's business. Elena crossed her arms. You stood up in front of the most cynical people in tech and told them the truth. People respond to that. I was just trying to help you. I know, which is why this is complicated. She walked back to her desk, pulled up an email, turned the screen toward him. I've been offered a keynote spot at the Global Tech Conference in 2 months. It's one of the biggest events in the industry. 20,000 attendees live-streamed globally. That's incredible. They want both of us to speak, together. Ryan's chest tightened. Why? Because the story of the fake engagement is apparently compelling. They want us to talk about authenticity, vulnerability, the human side of leadership. Elena's expression was carefully neutral. I can decline. Tell them it was a one-time thing. But you don't want to, say? No.
This is the kind of visibility that changes trajectories. For the company, for our reputation, for everything. She paused. But I'm not doing it without your consent. But you've already done more than I had any right to ask. Ryan thought about Mia, about the quiet life he'd been protecting, about the fact that speaking at a global conference meant stepping even further into a spotlight he'd never wanted. What would we even talk about, he asked. The truth. What actually happened. Why we lied. How it fell apart. What we learned. Elena's voice was steady. No more performance. No more pretending. Just the real story. You think people want to hear that? I think they're tired of the polished version of everything. You proved that at the summit. Ryan ran a hand through his hair. I need to think about it. Take your time. The conference isn't until October. Elena sat back down, her attention already shifting to her monitors. Then, as Ryan reached for the door, she added, For what it's worth, I think you'd be good at it. The speaking thing. Why? Because you don't try to sound smart. You just say what needs to be said. She glanced up. That's rarer than you think. Ryan left her office more confused than when he'd entered. That night, after Mia was asleep, he called the one person who might actually understand what he was going through. His sister Kate answered on the third ring. This better be good. I was in the middle of a Real Housewives marathon. I need advice. Oh, this is good. Hold on. Let me pause. Sounds of rustling, then Kate's voice came back clearer. Okay, shoot. What? Ryan told her everything. The fake engagement, the summit, the standing ovation, the conference invitation. Kate listened without interrupting, which was unusual for her. When he finished, there was a long silence. So let me get this straight, Kate said finally. Your hot boss asked you to pretend to be her fiancé, you accidentally became a viral business hero, and now you're being asked to speak at a conference about authenticity, even though the whole thing started as a giant lie. When you put it that way, it sounds worse. Ryan, it sounds incredible. Do you have any idea how many people would kill for this opportunity? I don't want an opportunity. I want a normal life. Why? The question caught him off guard. What do you mean, why? I mean, you've spent 5 years playing it safe. Ever since Mia's mom left, you've made yourself as small and invisible as possible. And now something's finally pushing you out of that, and you're looking for reasons to run back. I'm protecting Mia. From what? From seeing her dad do something brave? Kate's voice softened. Look, I get it. You got burned, you built walls, but you can't hide forever, Ryan. And from what you've told me, this Elena person isn't asking you to be someone you're not. She's asking you to be exactly who you are, just louder. Ryan closed his eyes. What if I mess it up? Then you mess it up. But at least you tried. After they hung up, Ryan sat in the dark for a long time, thinking about what Kate had said, about the walls he'd built, about the fact that maybe, possibly, he was using Mia as an excuse to avoid taking risks. His phone buzzed. Elena Vaughn. Are you awake? Ryan. Unfortunately. Elena Vaughn. I can't sleep. Keep thinking about the conference. Ryan. Same. Elena Vaughn. Want to talk it through? I'm still at the office. Ryan checked the time. It was 11 p.m. on a Monday. Ryan. You're at the office at 11 on a Monday? Elena Vaughn. Where else would I be? Ryan grabbed his keys. The office was dark except for Elena's suite. She was exactly where he'd left her 12 hours earlier, still surrounded by monitors, still working. You need to go home, Ryan said from the doorway. Elena didn't look up. I need to finish this analysis. It's 11 p.m. Your point? Ryan walked over and closed her laptop. Elena's head snapped up, her eyes flashing. When's the last time you left this office before midnight? I don't see how that's relevant. When, Elena? She glared at him. Then quietly, I don't remember. Ryan sat down across from her. You're going to burn out. I'm fine. You're not. You're running on nothing, and eventually that catches up. I don't have time to burn out. I have a company to run, investors to manage, a conference to prepare for, and none of that matters if you collapse. Elena's hands clenched into fists. You don't understand. I can't afford to slow down. The second I stop moving, the second I show any weakness, someone will use it against me.
Is that what you think? That taking care of yourself is weakness? In my world? Yes. Ryan leaned forward. Then your world is broken. Elena laughed, but there was no humor in it. Tell me something I don't know.
They sat in silence for a moment. Then Ryan said, I'll do the conference. Elena's eyes widened. What? The global tech thing. I'll do it, on one condition. What condition? You start going home before midnight. You start eating actual meals. You start acting like a human being instead of a machine. That's not a reasonable condition. Then I guess you're finding a new keynote speaker. Elena stared at him. You're serious? Completely. You're trying to negotiate my self-care in exchange for a professional commitment. Yes. That's manipulative. That's learning from the best. Ryan crossed his arms. Do we have a deal or not? Elena's expression shifted through several emotions. Anger, frustration, something that might have been amusement. Then she sighed. Fine, but I'm not happy about it. You're never happy about anything. That's not true. I was happy when the server migration finished on time.
That's not the same as being happy. Elena almost smiled. No, I suppose it's not. Ryan stood. Come on. Where? Well,
I'm driving you home. And tomorrow you're leaving by 8 p.m. Non-negotiable. Ryan, non-negotiable, Elena. She looked like she wanted to argue. Then she grabbed her bag and followed him to the elevator. They didn't talk on the drive to her apartment, a high-rise in the financial district with a lobby that looked like a modern art museum. Elena directed him to the parking garage, then hesitated before getting out. Thank you, she said, for doing the conference. And for this. You'd do the same for me.
Would I? Ryan met her eyes. Yeah, I think you would.
Elena looked surprised by that. Then she nodded and disappeared into the building. Ryan drove home thinking about the fact that somewhere along the line, this had stopped being just about money or survival. Somewhere along the line, he'd started actually caring what happened to Elena Vaughn. That was probably a mistake. But he was beginning to think it might be a mistake worth making. The next few weeks fell into a strange rhythm. Ryan worked his normal job during the day, managing servers, fixing code, attending meetings that could have been emails. But 3 nights a week, he stayed late to work with Elena on the conference presentation. They met in her office, ordering takeout and arguing about what the keynote should actually say. Elena wanted structure, data points, a clear narrative arc. Ryan wanted it to feel real, messy, human. We can't just get up there and wing it, Elena said for the 10th time. I'm not saying wing it. I'm saying don't script every word. People can tell when you're reading from a teleprompter. People expect polish at these events. People expect authenticity. That's literally the whole point of us speaking. Elena threw a pen at him. He caught it. You're infuriating, she said. You've mentioned that. Despite the arguing, or maybe because of it, the presentation started to take shape. They'd split it into 2 parts. Elena would talk about the business pressures that led to the fake engagement, and Ryan would talk about what it felt like to be pulled into that world. Then they'd discuss what they'd learned, both separately and together. It was honest, uncomfortable, probably too raw for a corporate conference. Elena loved it. This is good, she said one night, reviewing their latest draft. This is actually good. You sound surprised. I am. I didn't think we could pull this off. We haven't pulled it off yet. We still have to actually deliver it in front of 20,000 people. Elena's smile faded. Don't remind me. Ryan noticed she looked exhausted again. Have you been leaving by 8 like you promised? Most nights. Elena. Fine. 3 nights this week. The other 2 I had legitimate emergencies. What kind of emergencies? The kind where the Singapore office's entire network went down and I had to coordinate recovery from 3 time zones away. Ryan couldn't argue with that. Okay, but tonight, you're leaving at 8, no exceptions. Elena checked her watch. It was 7:45. That gives me 15 minutes. Then you better work fast. She did leave at 8, and Ryan felt an absurd amount of pride in that small victory. On his way out, Marcus caught him in the parking lot. Dude, what's going on with you and Elena? Ryan unlocked his car.
We're working on a conference presentation. Is that what we're calling it? That's what it is. Marcus leaned against the hood. Come on, man.
You're spending every night in her office. People are talking. People always talk. Yeah, but this time they're talking about whether you two are actually together.
Ryan froze.
What? I mean, the fake engagement thing was public, but now you're doing this conference together, and you're always around her and she listens to you in a way she doesn't listen to anyone else.
Marcus shrugged.
It's not that crazy to think maybe something's actually happening.
Nothing's happening. We're colleagues. Colleagues who have dinner together 3 nights a week. Us.
We're eating while we work. Right. And I'm sure the way she looks at you is completely professional.
Ryan's pulse kicked up.
How does she look at me? Marcus grinned, like she's trying to figure out if you're real or if she made you up. Ryan drove home with Marcus's words rattling around in his head. He picked up Mia, made her dinner, helped her with an art project that involved way too much glitter, and tried not to think about the way Elena had smiled at him tonight when he'd made her leave on time. After Mia was asleep, his phone buzzed. Elena Vaughn. I made it home by 8:30. Happy? Ryan.
Thrilled. Elena Vaughn. Don't get used to it. Ryan. Too late. There was a pause. Then,
Elena Vaughn. Marcus asked me today if we were dating.
Ryan's heart stopped.
Ryan. What did you tell him?
Elena Vaughn. That he should focus on his work instead of office gossip.
Ryan. Smooth. Elena Vaughn. I thought so.
Another pause.
Elena Vaughn. He's not the first person to ask. Ryan stared at his phone, trying to figure out what to say to that. Before he could respond,
another message came through. Elena Vaughn. Never mind, forget I said anything. See you tomorrow.
Ryan set down his phone and lay back on his couch, staring at the ceiling. This was getting complicated. 2 weeks before the conference, Elena called an emergency meeting. Ryan arrived at her office to find her pacing, her phone pressed to her ear, her expression murderous. I don't care what the schedule says. Find a way to make it work. She hung up, threw her phone on the desk. We have a problem. What kind of problem? The conference organizers want us to do a pre-event interview with Margaret Rothschild. Ryan's stomach sank. The media empire Margaret Rothschild? The very same. She's hosting a live-streamed interview series leading up to the conference. She wants us for the kickoff episode. Can we say no? We could, but she's also one of our biggest potential investors. Saying no would be unwise. Ryan sat down. When? Next week. And Ryan, she's going to ask about us. About the relationship, real or fake. About what's happening now. What is happening now? Elena looked at him for a long moment.
I have no idea.
The interview was scheduled for the following Thursday at Margaret's studio, a converted warehouse in the arts district with exposed brick and lighting that made everything look dramatic. Ryan arrived early, his hands sweating. Elena was already there, talking to a producer, looking completely calm. How are you not nervous? Ryan asked. I'm terrified. I'm just better at hiding it. Margaret Rothschild appeared, elegant in a way that suggested she'd been born wearing pearls.
Elena, Ryan, thank you for coming. They shook hands. Margaret's grip was firm, assessing.
I promise this won't be painful, Margaret said. Just honest.
That's what we're afraid of, Ryan muttered.
Margaret smiled. Good. Honest fear makes for good television. They were seated in chairs that looked comfortable but weren't, under lights that were somehow both too bright and too warm. A makeup artist fussed over Elena while Ryan tried not to panic. 2 minutes, someone called. Elena reached over and squeezed Ryan's hand. We've got this. Her hand was shaking. Ryan squeezed back. Together. The interview started. Margaret opened with softballs, background on Vaughn Technologies, the summit presentation, the response from investors. Elena handled them perfectly, professional and polished. Then Margaret turned to Ryan. You're not a CEO. You're not a public figure. What made you stand up in front of that room? Ryan thought about giving a practiced answer. Ryan thought about, then he remembered what Elena had said about authenticity. I was angry, he said simply, at the system that put her in that position, at the idea that her personal life mattered more than her work, at myself for going along with the lie in the first place. And now? How do you feel now? Still angry, but also hopeful, maybe, that things might actually change. Margaret nodded. Elena, the engagement was fake, but there's clearly a real partnership here. How would you describe your relationship with Ryan now? Elena's composure flickered. We're colleagues. Friends, maybe? It's complicated. Complicated how? Complicated in that we started from a lie and somehow ended up with something honest. I'm not sure there's a word for that. Margaret leaned forward. Do you want there to be? The silence stretched. Ryan watched Elena, saw her struggling for an answer. Then, without thinking, he said, I think we're both still figuring that out. Margaret's smile was knowing. Fair enough. Last question, and this one's for both of you. Knowing what you know now, would you do it again? The fake engagement, the risk, all of it? Elena looked at Ryan. Ryan looked back. Yes, they said at the same time. Margaret laughed. Well, I think that tells us everything we need to know. After the interview, Ryan and Elena stood in the parking lot, both of them drained. That was brutal, Elena said. Could have been worse. How? She could have asked what we actually are to each other. Elena went quiet. Then she said, Would you have known how to answer? Ryan met her eyes. No. Would you? No. They stood there for a moment, the question hanging between them like a challenge neither was ready to accept. We should go, Elena said finally. I have a board meeting in an hour. Right, of course, but neither of them moved. Ryan, Elena. They both stopped. Elena laughed nervously. You first, she said. Ryan took a breath. I think we need to talk, actually talk, about what this is. I know. But not right now. You have a board meeting. I have to pick up Mia. We're both exhausted, and this conversation deserves better than a parking lot. Elena nodded slowly. After the conference. After the conference. Okay. Ryan started to walk to his car. Then he turned back. For what it's worth. I don't regret it either. Any of it. Elena's smile was small and real. Good. Neither do I. Ryan drove home thinking about the fact that somewhere in the middle of all the lying and pretending, he'd stopped pretending about the one thing that actually mattered. He had no idea what Elena Vaughn was to him, but he was pretty sure he was falling for her anyway, and that terrified him more than any conference ever could. The week before the Global Tech Conference, everything fell apart. It started with a phone call at 6 in the morning. Ryan was making breakfast for Mia when his phone rang, Elena's name flashing across the screen. Please tell me you're not calling because something's on fire, Ryan said. Worse. Elena's voice was tight. David Crane just published an editorial in the Wall Street Journal about us. Ryan's stomach dropped. What does it say? Oh, that the whole thing was a publicity stunt, that we manufactured the fake engagement drama to get media attention before the conference, that we're using authenticity as a brand strategy instead of actually being authentic. That's insane. That's not the worst part. He's calling for the conference to drop us from the keynote, says we represent everything that's wrong with corporate culture. Ryan sat down heavily. Mia looked up from her cereal, concerned. Daddy okay? Where is he? Yeah, Bug, Daddy's fine. He turned away, lowering his voice. What do we do? I don't know. Elena sounded exhausted. The conference organizers called me at 5:30. They're not dropping us yet, but they're evaluating the situation, which is code for deciding whether we're more valuable as speakers or more problematic as a liability. Can we respond? Write our own editorial? And say what? That David's wrong? He's not entirely wrong, Ryan. We did lie. We did get media attention because of it. The fact that it turned into something real doesn't erase where it started. Ryan heard something break in her voice. Where are you? The office. It's 6 a.m. I know what time it is. I'm coming over. Ryan, I'm coming over. Don't argue. He hung up before she could protest, called Mrs. Ramirez to watch Mia, and was in his car before his coffee had cooled. Elena was in her office, staring at her laptop screen with an expression that looked like someone had just told her the world was ending. 3 coffee cups sat on her desk, all empty. How long have you been here? Ryan asked. Since yesterday. Elena, I know, I broke my promise, but this is an emergency. Ryan walked around the desk and closed her laptop. Elena looked up, startled. What are you doing? Getting you out of this office before you have a breakdown, Rob. I don't have time for a breakdown. Then make time. Ryan pulled her to her feet. Come on. Where are we going? Anywhere but here. Elena resisted for about 3 seconds, then let him guide her to the elevator. They ended up at a diner 2 blocks away, the kind of place with vinyl booths and waitresses who called everyone honey. Elena looked completely out of place in her designer suit, but she slid into the booth anyway. Ryan ordered coffee and pancakes for both of them. Elena stared at the menu like it was written in a foreign language. I don't eat pancakes, she said. Today you do. Ryan, Elena, when's the last time you ate an actual meal? She was quiet. That's what I thought. The food arrived. Elena picked at her pancakes, then took a bite, then another. By the time Ryan finished his, she'd eaten half of hers. Better? He asked. Marginally. She set down her fork. This doesn't solve our problem. No, but it gives us energy to actually think about solutions instead of spiraling. Elena's lips twitched. When did you become the calm one? I have a 5-year-old. Crisis management is my default state. Fair point. Elena wrapped her hands around her coffee mug. David's not wrong, you know. We did manipulate the situation. We adapted to circumstances. There's a difference. Is there? Because from where I'm sitting, we took a lie and turned it into a story people wanted to believe. That's manipulation, Ryan. Just because it worked doesn't make it right. Ryan studied her face. She looked wrecked, shadows under her eyes, lines of tension around her mouth. But more than that, she looked defeated. You think we should drop out of the conference? He said. I think maybe David's right. Maybe we don't deserve to speak about authenticity when our whole story is built on deception. And I think you're exhausted and scared and looking for a way out. Elena's eyes flashed. Excuse me? You heard me. This isn't about David's editorial. This is about you being terrified of standing on that stage and being vulnerable in front of 20,000 people. I'm not terrified. You're absolutely terrified. And you're looking for a reason to pull out before you have to face that. Elena stood abruptly. You don't know what you're talking about. Then prove me wrong. Tell me you actually believe we should quit. She opened her mouth, closed it, sat back down. I hate you, she said quietly. No, you don't. I really, really do. Ryan reached across the table and took her hand. She didn't pull away. Here's what I think, he said. I think David published that editorial because he's scared too. His father bet $40 million on you, and if you succeed, it proves Richard right and David wrong. So he's trying to take you down before you get the chance. That's a lot of projection. Maybe, but I've seen the way he looks at you, like you're something that needs to be managed or eliminated. That's not someone who believes in authenticity. That's someone who's protecting their own interests. But Elena was quiet for a long moment. Then she said, even if you're right, what do we do? The damage is done. People are questioning whether we're legitimate. So we answer them directly, honestly. How? Ryan pulled out his phone, typed something, showed her the screen. It was a draft tweet from Elena's account. David Crane thinks we manufactured our story. He's half right. We did lie. We got caught. We learned something. And now we're going to talk about it anyway. See you at GTC. Elena stared at it. That's incredibly risky. Everything about this has been risky. If we do this, there's no going back. We're committing to the conference, to the story, to everything. Ryan met her eyes. I know. Elena took a breath, then reached for his phone and hit send before she could second-guess herself. The response was immediate. Within minutes, the tweet had hundreds of replies. Some supportive, some skeptical, some outright hostile. But it was getting attention. And attention meant people would be watching. Well, Elena said, staring at her phone as notifications poured in. We're committed now. We were always committed. We just made it official. Elena looked at him, something shifting in her expression. Why are you doing this? You could walk away right now. Take your speaker fee, go back to your life. Instead, you're here, talking me off ledges and forcing me to eat pancakes. Ryan thought about the question, about all the reasons he should have walked away weeks ago, and all the reasons he kept staying. Because someone once told me that watching you give up felt wrong, he said. And she was right. She sounds smart. She's terrifying. But yeah, she's smart. Elena smiled, and it was real and tired and grateful all at once. Thank you, she said, for this, for all of it. You can thank me by going home and sleeping for 8 hours straight. That's not realistic. Then 6. We have 4 days until the conference. You need to be functional. Elena nodded slowly. Okay, 6 hours. But then we're back to work. Deal. They left the diner and stood on the sidewalk, the morning sun just starting to burn through the fog. Elena looked at Ryan like she wanted to say something, then seemed to think better of it. I'll see you tomorrow, she said instead. Tomorrow. Ryan watched her walk to her car, wondering when exactly he'd stopped being able to imagine his life without her in it. The next 3 days were chaos. Ryan and Elena practiced their presentation obsessively, refining every word, every pause, every transition. They argued about pacing and tone and whether to address David's editorial directly or let their story speak for itself. In the end, they decided on directness. They'd open by acknowledging the criticism, then tell the real story, messy and imperfect and true. The night before the conference, Ryan couldn't sleep. He lay in bed staring at his phone, reading through the notes one more time, trying to calm the panic rising in his chest. A text came through. Elena Vaughn, you awake? Ryan, unfortunately. Elena Vaughn, want to do one more run-through? Ryan, it's 2 a.m. Elena Vaughn, so? Ryan thought about saying no. Then he got dressed and drove to the office. Elena was in the same conference room where they'd practiced, wearing sweatpants and a hoodie Ryan had never seen before. She looked young like this, unguarded in a way she never was during business hours. You own sweatpants? Ryan said. Shut up, I own casual clothes. I've never seen you wear them. That's because you only see me at work. She gestured to the presentation remote. Come on, one more time. They ran through it twice, stumbling over words they'd practiced 100 times, getting timings wrong, second-guessing every choice. We're going to bomb, Elena said after the second run. We're not going to bomb. We're absolutely going to bomb. 20,000 people are going to watch us crash and burn. Ryan set down the remote. Elena, look at me. Mom, dear, my. She did. We're not going to bomb, he said carefully. We might not be perfect. We might mess up our lines or lose our place. But we're not going to bomb because we're telling the truth. And people respond to that. You sound very confident. I'm faking it. Elena laughed, and the tension broke. She sat down on the edge of the stage, and Ryan sat beside her. I'm scared, she admitted quietly. Me too. What if this ruins everything? The company, my reputation, your career? Then we'll figure it out, together. Elena turned to look at him. Why do you keep saying that? Together, like it's a given. Ryan thought about all the careful diplomatic answers he could give. Then he decided he was done being careful. Because at some point over the last few months, you became someone I don't want to do things without, he said. And I don't know what that means or where it's going, but I know I'm tired of pretending I don't feel it. Elena went very still. Ryan, you don't have to say anything. I know the timing's terrible. We have the conference tomorrow, and we agreed to talk after, and I'm breaking that agreement. But I'm also done pretending that this is just about business or convenience or any of the other reasons we've been using to avoid the actual question. Which is? Ryan met her eyes. Whether you feel it too. The silence stretched between them long enough that Ryan started to regret every word he'd just said. Then Elena kissed him. It was tentative at first, uncertain,
like she was testing whether this was real or another story they were telling themselves. But then Ryan's hand found her face, and Elena's fingers tangled in his hair, and suddenly there was nothing tentative about it. When they finally pulled apart, both breathing hard, Elena's eyes were wide. "So?" Ryan said. "I'm taking that as a yes?" Elena laughed, the sound slightly hysterical. "We have the biggest presentation of our lives in 12 hours. I know. This is terrible timing. The worst. We should focus on the conference." "Absolutely." Neither of them moved. "Ryan," Elena said softly, "I don't know how to do this. I don't know how to be with someone and run a company and not mess everything up. Neither do I, but I'm willing to try if you are." Elena looked at him for a long moment, then she nodded. "Okay, but after the conference, we do this right, not as some impulsive decision at 2 in the morning. What does it? Button. After the conference," Ryan agreed, but he kissed her again anyway because waiting another 12 hours suddenly felt impossible. The Global Tech Conference was held in a massive convention center downtown, the kind of place designed to make individuals feel insignificant. Ryan arrived early, his stomach in knots, and found Elena backstage looking like she might throw up. "How are you feeling?" he asked. "Like I'm about to walk in front of a firing squad. You?" "Same." They were scheduled for 1 p.m., the afternoon keynote slot. Marcus had texted that morning saying he'd be in the audience with Priya and half the office. Kate had flown in from Seattle, bringing Mia with her so Ryan could see his daughter before he went on stage. Mia ran to him the second she spotted him, Mr. Whiskers tucked under one arm. "Daddy, Aunt Kate says you're going to be on TV." Ryan scooped her up. "Something like that. Are you nervous?" "Very. Don't be. You're the best." Mia looked past him and spotted Elena. Her face lit up. "Elena!" Elena turned, surprised, as Mia squirmed out of Ryan's arms and ran to her. Elena crouched down, looking uncertain. "Hi, Mia. Are you doing the talk with Daddy?" "I am." "Are you nervous too?" Elena glanced at Ryan, then back at Mia. "Yes, very nervous." Mia patted her shoulders seriously. "It's okay. You're going to be great. Daddy says you're really smart." Elena's expression softened. "He says you're really smart too." "I know, I got all the state capitals." Mia threw her arms around Elena's neck in an impulsive hug. Elena froze for a second, then carefully hugged her back. When Mia pulled away, Elena's eyes were suspiciously bright. Kate appeared, gently steering Mia away. "Come on, kiddo, let's get good seats." "Bye, Daddy. Bye, Elena." "You're going to be awesome." They disappeared into the crowd. Ryan turned to Elena. "You okay? "She's wonderful," Elena said quietly. "She is. She hugged me. She does that. I don't. People don't usually." Elena trailed off, then shook her head. "Never mind." "Elena, 5 minutes," Sarata, a production assistant, called. "You're on in 5. They were ushered to the stage entrance, fitted with microphones, given last-minute instructions that Ryan immediately forgot. The audience was filing into the hall, thousands of people, their voices a low roar. Elena grabbed his hand. "Whatever happened," she said, "thank you for getting me here. Thank you for letting me come with you." The lights dimmed. The moderator walked on stage, delivering the introduction they'd heard in rehearsal. And then it was time. Ryan walked out into the lights with Elena beside him, and the roar of 20,000 people hit him like a physical force. They took their positions. Elena at one podium, Ryan at the other. The slides they'd prepared glowed on the screen behind them. Elena spoke first. "3 months ago, I stood in front of a room full of investors and lied to them," she began. "I told them I was engaged when I wasn't. I presented a relationship that didn't exist. And when I got caught, I doubled down on the lie because I was scared of what would happen if I told the truth." The audience was silent. "Today, I'm not here to make excuses for that. I'm here to tell you what I learned from it." Elena paused, looking out at the sea of faces. "I learned that the pressure to present a perfect version of yourself in business is crushing. That investors will judge you on your personal life as much as your balance sheet. And that sometimes
In trying to meet those expectations, you lose sight of who you actually are. Ryan watched her, seeing the vulnerability she was finally allowing people to see. But I also learned something else, Elena continued. I learned that authenticity isn't about never making mistakes. It's about what you do when those mistakes catch up to you. And I learned that from the person standing across from me. She looked at Ryan. He nodded and stepped up to his podium. I'm not a CEO, Ryan said. I'm an IT manager and a single dad who got pulled into something way over his head. And when Elena asked me to lie for her, I said yes. Not because I thought it was right, but because I needed the money and I was scared of losing my job. Someone in the audience laughed nervously, but somewhere in this middle of that lie, something changed. I started seeing past the perfect exterior Elena showed the world. I saw someone who was working herself into the ground, trying to prove she deserved a seat at a table that kept moving the requirements, and I got angry on her behalf. Ryan glanced at his notes, then pushed them aside. The thing about authenticity is that it's terrifying. It means showing people the parts of yourself you've spent years hiding. Your mistakes, your fears, the fact that you don't have everything figured out. And in business, that feels dangerous. Because the second you show weakness, someone's going to use it against you. He looked directly at the section where he knew David Crane was sitting. Someone recently wrote that our story was a publicity stunt. And you know what? He's not entirely wrong. We did get attention because of this. We did benefit from telling a story people wanted to hear, but here's what he missed. We also paid a price for it. We risked our reputations, our careers, our credibility. And we did it because we believed that telling the truth, even a messy, complicated truth, was worth more than maintaining a perfect lie. Elena stepped forward. So here's what we're asking you to consider. What if we stopped demanding perfection from our leaders? What if we valued honesty over polish? What if we created a business culture where people could admit mistakes without it being career suicide? Boss, that's not weakness, Ryan added. That's courage. And if we want innovation, if we want creativity, if we want companies that actually solve problems instead of just looking good in press releases, we need to make room for people to be human. Elena looked at him, and he could see everything they'd been through reflected in her eyes. Ryan and I don't have all the answers, she said. We're still figuring this out ourselves, but we're doing it honestly, and that's something. They spoke for another 20 minutes, alternating between them, telling the story of what had actually happened. The fear, the mistakes, the moments where they almost gave up. And throughout it all, Ryan could feel the audience leaning in, engaged in a way he'd never experienced. When they finished, the silence lasted for 3 full seconds. Then someone started clapping. Then another person. Then the entire hall erupted. Ryan looked out at 20,000 people on their feet, applauding, and felt something shift in his chest. Elena grabbed his hand, squeezing tight, and he squeezed back. They walked off stage to thunderous applause, and the second they were in the wings, Elena turned to him. We did it, she said, her voice shaking. We did. I can't believe we actually did it. Then she was hugging him, and Ryan was holding her, and for the first time since this whole thing started, everything felt right. The rest of the conference was a blur. Investors approached them, asking questions, requesting meetings. Margaret Rothschild offered Elena a spot on her advisory board. Even David Crane, looking uncomfortable, shook Ryan's hand and muttered something about respect. But the moment that mattered most came that evening, after everything was over. Ryan found Elena in a quiet corner of the convention center, staring out at the city lights. Hey, he said. She turned, smiling. Hey yourself. The conference is over. It is. Which means we need to have that conversation. Elena nodded slowly. About what we are to each other. Yeah. She was quiet for a moment, then she said, I don't know how to do this, Ryan. I don't know how to be someone's partner when I can barely take care of myself. I work too much. I'm terrible at relationships, and I come with a level of scrutiny and pressure that most people can't handle. I know. And you have Mia to think about. She deserves stability, not someone who's going to be traveling constantly or working late, or... Elena, Ryan interrupted gently. I know all of that, and I'm still here. Why? Because I've spent 5 years playing it safe, and I'm tired of it. Because you make me want to take risks again. Because Mia thinks you're nice, and she's usually right about people. He stepped closer. And because when I think about my future, you're in it. even though that's terrifying and impractical and probably a terrible idea. Elena's eyes were bright. It's an awful idea. The worst. We're going to mess this up. Probably multiple times. I'm going to drive you crazy. You already do. Elena laughed, and then she was crying, and then she was kissing him. And Ryan thought that maybe terrible ideas were sometimes the best ones. When they finally pulled apart, Elena said, "So what do we do now?" "Now?" Ryan smiled. "Now we figure it out, together."
I thought you might say that.
It's kind of my thing. 2 months later, Ryan stood in Elena's backyard. She'd bought a house, finally admitting that her apartment was too sterile, watching Mia chase butterflies while Elena attempted to use a grill for what appeared to be the first time in her life. "I think you're supposed to turn it on," Ryan called. "I am turning it on. It's not cooperating." "Have you tried reading the manual?" "I don't need a manual. I'm a CEO. I can operate a grill." "Those two things are not related. Each needs that what chamos." Elena glared at him, then laughed when the grill finally ignited with a small whoosh of flame. "See? I've got this." Ryan walked over and kissed her temple. "You absolutely do." Kate was there, along with Marcus and Priya and a handful of people from the office. It was casual, easy, the kind of gathering Ryan had forgotten how to have. Mia ran over, grass stains on her knees. "Daddy, can Elena come to my school thing next week?" Ryan glanced at Elena, who looked caught off guard. "What school thing?" Elena asked. "Career day. You can talk about being a boss." Elena's expression softened. "I'd love to." Mia beamed and ran off to tell Mr. Whiskers the good news. "You don't have to," Ryan said quietly. "I know, but I want to." Elena looked at him. "Is that okay? Me being part of her life like this?" "Elena, you've been part of her life since she declared you nice. I'm just glad you're finally admitting it." Elena smiled, then turned back to the grill with renewed determination. Ryan watched her, this woman who'd somehow become essential to him, and felt something settle in his chest. Later that night, after everyone had left and Mia was asleep on the couch, Ryan and Elena sat on the back porch, looking up at the stars. "I got an offer today," Elena said quietly. Ryan's chest tightened. "What kind of offer?" Acquisition. A tech giant wants to buy Vaughn Technologies. Full acquisition, $75 million. Ryan processed that. "That's incredible." "It is. Are you going to take it?" Elena was quiet for a long time. Then she said, "No." No? "I built this company because I needed to prove I could create something that lasted. And selling it now, even for $75 million, feels like giving up on that." She looked at him. "I know it's probably stupid. It's generational wealth. It's security. It's everything I thought I wanted. But it's not what you actually want. No, what I actually want is to keep building, to see where this goes, to do it on my own terms." She paused. "With you beside me, if you're willing." Ryan took her hand. "I'm willing, even though it means more uncertainty, more risk?" "Especially because of that." Elena leaned against him, and they sat there in the quiet, watching the lights of the city in the distance. "You know what the weirdest part of all this is?" Elena said eventually. "What?" "I used to think success meant having complete control. No surprises, no variables, everything perfectly planned. But this, you, Mia, the company, all of it, none of it went according to plan. And it's better than anything I could have designed." Ryan thought about that, about the fake engagement that became real, about the lie that led to truth, about the careful, quiet life he'd built, and how completely it had been upended. "I think that's the point," he said. "The best things are usually the ones we don't see coming." Elena smiled. "When did you get so wise?" "I have a 5-year-old. She teaches me things." "She's a good teacher." "The best." They sat there until the stars came out, and for the first time in longer than Ryan could remember, he wasn't worried about the future. Because whatever came next, they'd face it together. And that was enough. 3 months later, on a quiet Sunday morning in Elena's backyard, Ryan got down on one knee. Mia was there holding a ring box and barely containing her excitement. Kate was filming on her phone,
crying already.
Elena Vaughn, Ryan said, his voice steady despite his racing heart. I was going to prepare a whole speech about how you changed my life and taught me to take risks and made me believe in possibilities I'd given up on. But then I realized I've already told you all that. So I'm just going to ask, will you marry me? For real this time. Elena was crying, laughing, nodding all at once. Yes, absolutely yes. Mia shrieked and threw herself at both of them, Mr. Whiskers flying out of her hands. The ring went on. It fit perfectly because Ryan had spent 2 weeks secretly measuring Elena's fingers. And for a moment, everything was exactly as chaotic and imperfect and right as it was supposed to be. Later, when the celebration had died down, and Mia was showing Mr. Whiskers her new favorite person's engagement ring, Ryan and Elena stood together watching the sunset. You know what I learned from all this? Elena said. What? That the things worth having are the things you choose. Not the things that look good on paper or make sense strategically, but the things you choose because they make you better. She looked at him. You make me better, Ryan Carter. You make me braver, Elena Vaughn. Soon to be Elena Carter. Is that what you want? Elena considered it. Actually, I think I'd like to keep Vaughn, but hyphenate it, Vaughn Carter. Best of both. Sounds perfect. Nothing's perfect. Then it sounds real, which is better. Elena kissed him as the sun set over the city they'd both learned to call home. And Ryan thought about how far they'd come from that first desperate lie in a conference room. About the journey from fake to real, from survival to choice, from hiding to being seen. And he thought about Mia, who'd been right all along. Elena was nice. She just hadn't known it yet, but she knew it now. They both did. And that made all the difference.